know how many acres Central Park is made up of? Now, I'm gonna give you 1 second here to guess in the comments how big Central Park actually is. Okay, so you guys should have put your guesses in by now. Central Park is made up of 840 acres of land. Can you believe that? So how can a park in New York City be made up of so much land? I just don't understand it. It's absolutely wild to me. I would have never guessed that in a million years. But I guess when you go through Central Park, if you spent a lot of time there, you'd realize how gigantic Central Park is. Like, it literally stretches between multiple neighborhoods. That's how crazy it is. So where does Central Park start? On the southern boundary, so Central Park South starts at 59th Street, and then it stretches all the way up to 110th Street. From east to west, it starts on the east side at 5th Avenue and then stretches all the way to Central Park West, but Central Park West is technically 8th Avenue. It just kind of stops right around Central Park. So that's what you're looking at there. It really spans between 59th to 110th, and then you're looking at the span of 3 avenues as well. So it's gigantic if you really think about it. And we'll put up a picture here so you can actually see it on the map. So how can you get to Central Park? So I would say if you want to start at the southern part of Central Park, which is probably the most popular. I mean, most tourists are going to be there because it's on the border of Midtown Manhattan, and that's where most tourists are going to be coming in from. So you're going to start at 59th Street, and I would say go to Columbus Circle if you're on the west side. So it's going to be a little bit more tricky to get there from the east side. Now, if you're taking the 456, which is the main east side line, I would say at least, doesn't go directly to Central Park. So you're going to have to get off and walk over to the park. Or if you're getting off at like Grand Central, I guess you could walk up from there. There's also stations that go past Central Park. You'll just won't be able to get on at 59th Street, or you'd have to walk down to the 59th Street side. Or you'd have to take another train that's not on that 456 line. So what does Central Park have? Honestly, probably a little bit of everything, to be completely honest. I would say that you can spend days in Central Park and still not see it all. I mean, I've been to Central Park just so many times at this point, and still to this day, I will go into like a little area of Central Park and I'm like, I really have no idea if I've ever seen this before, because there's just so much to see. It's truly incredible. Like, you can be in Central Park and forget that you're in New York City because it just like sucks you in. It's like a whole different world. So you might have seen pictures or videos of people doing the boat rides in Central Park at the lake, or people going to the Central Park Zoo, or just people kind of like taking hikes and doing walks around. Now, there's plenty of areas where you're doing like, I wouldn't say adventurous hikes or anything like that, especially to like people who are like actually hiking outside of the city, but you really could get a great workout just kind of strolling through the park. And some areas, especially if you're going more kind of like towards the north side of the park, you're definitely gonna have a little bit more like challenging like elevation that you're kind of going through there. A lot of people also like to bike through the park. I personally love biking through the park. It's a big park. You're gonna get a workout in. If you're taking a regular bike, like, it's gonna be absolutely exhausting. So like if you're taking a regular city bike, and definitely not gonna lie, I've never done the whole perimeter of the park through regular bike. I've only done it through e-bike, and I was still kind of tired after the e-bike, like, not gonna lie. And I feel like I bike pretty regularly. So there is a restaurant in Central Park, Tavern on Green, and I've heard good things. I've never been there myself. There used to be another lakefront boathouse restaurant, but that one has temporarily closed down. It's kind of like to be discussed. But also, if you go to the perimeters in the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side, there's a ton of really good restaurants, coffee shops that are neighboring the park. If you're spending a day there, you can easily just run out of the park, go to one of those restaurants, and come back. But also, Central Park is a really, really popular place to have a picnic as well. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Central Park has a lot of rats, like a lot of rats. And think about it. Why wouldn't it have a lot of rats? If you were a rat living in New York City, this is what I always say to people. Why wouldn't you live in Central Park? I would love to live in Central Park if I was a rat. Put it in perspective. Like, of course there's gonna be rats there. It's a big place and it's in nature right in the middle of the city. So I just want you to be prepared, because I remember when I was younger, the first time that I really spent a lot of time in Central Park, walking through the park, minding my business. I was by myself and I just looked around and I felt like every corner I looked in, there was just like a bunch of rats. Of course, it was the part of the Central Park I was in, but I was just like, they're everywhere. Like, literally, like, that's what my thought was. So I have never picnicked in Central Park because, like, honestly, it kind of creeps me out a little bit. I'm not a big fan. But there are plenty of places, like the Meadows, I would say, like the big open fields. Like, there's a lot of people having picnics there all the time, and you're probably gonna be fine, but it's just something to be aware of depending on where you are in the park. So just keep an eye on. All parks and all areas of the city has rats. I just hate to break it to you, but it's the truth, and I had to learn that the hard way. But I just think that there tends to be a lot in Central Park, just because why wouldn't there be? Of course a rat would love to be in Central Park. Throughout the year, there's also a ton going on that is like seasonal as well. They have some like little festivals there. They have a lot of music performances, honestly. They do have a lot of that. And also around Christmas time, like in the winter, they do a Christmas tree lighting in North Central Park. They do the ice skating in Central Park, which I highly recommend, and I absolutely love ice skating in Central Park. It's probably one of my favorite places to ice skate because I feel like the rink is a good size. It's basically like a little bit more closed off compared to other ice rinks in the city, so I really do like that. So my personal recommendation is, I think that everybody should see Southern Central Park, but I do think that that area of Central Park is more known and more iconic. But I feel like North Central Park, because it's so far away from where the main parts of Manhattan are, I feel like it doesn't get enough love, honestly. Like, that's kind of been my recent thing. Like, when I've been going to Central Park more recently, I've been kind of trying to explore Northern Central Park because I think there's so much there to see, and I just feel like it doesn't get enough love, honestly. So if you have time, I honestly would recommend spending a day at Central Park because I think you can easily do that, and if you get a little bit bored of the park, you can go to, like I said, one of the surrounding neighborhoods and just come back to the park because there's just that much to see. I really do think that you shouldn't just spend time in the southern Central Park. You should really see outside of that as well in the northern part. And there's also like less people, like less tourists and stuff around there. So I do think it's really cool to see that. So I would love to know what you guys think of Central Park. Do you like Central Park? Do you think it's overrated? And also, if you guys have any questions about Central Park, please share them in the comments because as always, I love hearing from you guys.